Hey everyone, it's Molly, obviously. And I know this podcast has come to be known as the yoga of business. And I'm coming to you with a little bit of a special edition today. And I'm calling this the yoga of. So who knows where this will go, but I'm feeling so inspired by what I'm going to talk about today. And so I'm hoping you'll stick with me on this. So today's little special episode is called the yoga of Taylor Swift. And I don't mean to jump on the bandwagon because I don't know about you, but my social media feeds are absolutely packed with Taylor Swift Easter eggs, memes, stories, New Heights podcast, all of this good stuff. I must have clicked on something when stuff came out and now my algorithm is just feeding it to me. So, anyway, y'all know that I live in the Brooks Range of Alaska, 7 hours from town, what we call town, which is Fairbanks. And so when I have to go to town, which I had to do recently, I knew that I was going to need to listen to something. And honestly, all of the fairy books that I've been listening to are now completed. And I really haven't decided what my next audiobook is going to be. And so I packed my phone with podcasts for this most recent trip. And I knew I had a lot of time. 7 hours is a long time. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to the New Heights podcast that featured Taylor Swift. Now, I am one of what I imagine is a massive amount of people, maybe women, I don't know, who listened to the New Heights podcast for the first time just now because of Tswift. And so I am not going to claim to be any sort of New Heights expert or Taylor Swift expert. What I know is yoga. And honestly, y'all, the reason I'm talking about this is because I know yoga and that podcast was bursting with it. And so that's what I want to talk about today because I cannot hold back. And honestly, the yoga of as a title feels so perfect and special because yoga is everywhere. Yoga is literally in every part of our lives. And I know that's like my lens. So I know not everybody looks at the world that way, but for you out there, you might consider yourself a yogi, you might be a yoga teacher. If you are not seeing yoga in the nooks and the crannies of your life, especially in like random celebrity podcasts, if you're not finding it, that's okay, but like maybe you want to because I will tell you it is so fun to just see it on display and it echoes back to you. And so I was just filled with so much inspiration today. Some of the stuff is related to business because Taylor Swift is an incredible businesswoman, but I think all of it can be applied to life. So anyway, I've got my notes here, so I'm going to try to keep on track because there was so much to talk about. So the first thing that I want to just note is this concept of archetypes. So Taylor Swift, this is the biggest thing I was just enamored with. I'm currently teaching, I'm in the middle of one of my 300-hour yoga teacher trainings. It's the advanced training that comes after a 200-hour. And I teach live for a portion of that on Zoom when before and after everybody comes to the Arctic to spend a week with me there. But what I'm teaching in those sessions is called archetypal alchemy. And what I meant by that is I'm taking different archetypes that I teach about often, like the planets of Jyotish and the Tantra wisdom goddesses. So the 10 wisdom goddesses, the Dasha Mahavidyas. And so I'm taking those and just weaving pairs of them together. And it's not like we can just overlay archetypes from different traditions or different parts of traditions all the time, word for word. But it's so cool to see patterns and to connect some dots. So that's really my objective. And so I'm in that mode. And so when I was listening to Taylor talk, I was like, she is giving all the Saraswati vibes. And if you don't know who Saraswati is a goddess in the Vedic tradition, in the yogic tradition. She is one of what we would call the triad, we might say. There are lots of versions of the triad, but typically we see Lakshmi, Parvati, and Saraswati, sometimes Kali, sometimes Durga. But so there's lots of stories. But what I'm getting at is that Saraswati is the goddess of the word. She is the goddess of wisdom, of music, of poetry. Um, just you just think of her, I just think of her of like holding these tomes of wisdom. And I know not everybody thinks that Taylor Swift is like the most wise person ever. I mean, I think she's really, really smart. So that's my perspective. But when it comes to her choice of words and her songwriting and her ability to plan so far in advance and weave together this tapestry of her brand, oh my gosh, it's just giving all the Saraswati vibes. So from this, we're really able to experience that archetypal wisdom. And whether you're familiar with Saraswati and Parvati and Lakshmi, or maybe you're familiar with the Greek gods and goddesses, or maybe you're like, I don't know any of this, Molly, all I know is Taylor Swift. She is an archetype. She embodies an archetype. And what an archetype is, it's like these things in the human psyche that are the same for all of us. This is what something like the tarot deck is based upon. Human beings, while we like to think that we're really special and we're really unique, we all are pretty similar. And we all have these certain categories of things in our life that we can draw similarities from, that we can find mutual ground from. Excuse me. So like there's the mother archetype, and then there's the father archetype, and then there's the sun, and the moon, and we all have these relationships with these. And so Taylor Swift, like it or not, is like an archetype because, she's somewhat, for most of us, except for Travis Kelce, apparently, she's like this unattainable being that there's so much mystery to her, and yet we feel like we know her, or at least I do after listening to this podcast. So, yes, that's the thing. I listened to this entire podcast. It's 2 hours long, and again, remember, I had a long drive. And I even found myself, I normally listen to stuff like a little bit fast forwarded to like 1.25. I even slowed this down. That's how much I enjoyed listening to it. And so thinking of her in this archetypal way, she dropped some serious bits of wisdom, and I knew I didn't even have to write them down because I could just go straight to the internet because everybody is talking about them. So the first nugget of wisdom that I want to read you this quote that she said. So she said, anything you feed your brain, it will internalize. Anything you feed the internet, it will kill. And while, yes, this is a bit dramatic, and this was in context around Jason Kelce's sharing his, obsession with Twitter commenting. And again, I'm not an expert on them or football or the New Heights podcast or Taylor Swift, but I laughed because I feel like that's so likable. I feel like it's so relatable for so many of us, right? Like we just get so fired up about the internet. We get so fired up about comments about this and that. And she made an additional comment that was something like, even stuff that I see that has my name in it is still none of my business. And this idea of our brains soaking up what we feed it, that's exactly what's going on with our bodies. That's exactly what's going on with our environment. It's like the stew that we put ourselves in becomes us. The food that we put in our body becomes us. The things that we put in our mind become us. And, yeah. And the internet, what I think she was getting at by saying, whatever you feed the internet, it will kill. It's just, especially when we talk about algorithms, which Google's an algorithm, social media is an algorithm, advertising is all algorithm based. It's feeding you more of what you want. It's feeding you more of what you already like or what you're searching for. That's what it's designed to do. That's sort of how life is, but on the internet, it's an artificial delivery system. We have to get off the internet and live our lives. And how do we do that? How do we make sure that what we're feeding our brain is worthwhile? This is where I was like, oh my gosh, this is why we use mantra. So, mantra or Sanskrit words and phrases and sounds, we use these in the yogic tradition to give our mind, and I'm going to differentiate. Brain is an organ. Mind is so much greater than the brain. And we've got to train our mind. No different than training a sled dog. Trust me. I've done both. We've got to train our mind to focus on what we want it to focus on. And I know this is easier said than done, and certainly mantra is not going to solve our problems if we don't have our basic human needs met. So if someone's like doesn't have food and you say, well, you should just chant mantra, not super helpful, right? But when we do have our needs met, and when we are able to start to dig into the layers and start to think, what sort of life do I want to live? How can I show up as a brighter version of myself? That's when we are able to take these tools from yogic tradition and actually make it happen. And so mantra or mantra, however you want to pronounce it, mantra is something that we can utilize because these Sanskrit sounds are the sounds of nature. They're sounds that are very ancient, and when we chant them over and over again, it's like planting a seed. And the word bija actually means seed. So like om, which you might be familiar with, is a seed sound. And these seed sounds, it's not like they have definitions per se. They're like sounds of nature. Like they're definitionless. And yet the human mind, especially the Western human mind, is like, no, but I'd really like a meaning. How does this translate? It's not apples to apples with English and Sanskrit. They're incomparable. English is kind of this utilitarian language, whereas Sanskrit is a vibrational language. And so to say, how do we translate Om? It's like someone described it once to me as like everything and nothing at all. That's what I say. So when we use these sounds, this is my point, we don't have any other association with these sounds. So we're planting this seed, and all of these seed sounds have a really distinct vibration. And some of the vibrations are for, more like creative endeavors or love or really uplifting concepts. So when we plant that seed and we repeat it over and over and over and over again, it's like implanting I'll say artificial algorithm, but it's a very intentional algorithm, rather than allowing our mind to just go willy-nilly. Okay. And so this leads me to the second quote that I wrote down that the internet's going crazy over right now. Taylor said, you should think of your energy as if it's expensive, as if it's like a luxury item. Not everyone can afford it. And then she goes on to say, what you spend your energy on, that's the day. And so when we're allowing our mind to just do whatever it wants, if you think to yourself, "Oh, I don't need to meditate. I'm good." That might be true for a little bit. And then you realize, "Wow, I am spending so much time I'm wasting my time doing XYZ, whatever that is for you." You realize, you think to yourself, wow, I wish I had time to accomplish some of these like big, hairy goals that I have in life, but I don't have any time. I guarantee you have time. And if you devote your time to these practices, whether the practices of yoga, meditation, mindfulness, whether that resonates with you or some other practices, if you start diving into that I'll say self-help world, self-development, let's say that. If you start diving into that, you will have more time, even if you're devoting a bunch of time to that, because your time and your attention will be more focused, will be more deliberate, and honestly, more enjoyable. And this was the next thing that I thought of is this it just seemed like they were having so much fun having this conversation. Like I feel like, and this is probably why Travis and Jason Kelce have like a crazy popular podcast, because I actually enjoyed listening to them chatter, and I love when they were laughing. Like laughter is so contagious, and those two, even when Taylor would be talking, they would be like mumbling and chuckling to each other. Like not in a way that kind of put her down, but like it was obvious they just they're brothers. They have such a funny rapport. And I loved listening to that. And you can tell like Taylor is a planner, which again, not a Tswift expert over here. But what I learned in 2 hours of listening to her talk is that she loves the planning. She loves being deliberate. And I got lots of like Virgo energy from her, just like planning and organizing and like everything is just so. And I can relate to that. But where I think that Travis comes in is he kind of swooped into her life and he totally gets that with his football routines. And obviously he's an incredibly talented athlete. And so you have to be regimented and disciplined. But also this element of just like low level spontaneity or just like getting outside your routine, but still accomplishing your goals and dreams, but understanding that when you bring that spontaneity in your life, it's not taking away from your goals, it's not taking away from the routine and structure, it's complementing it. It's actually making it more meaningful. And like where I can relate to this is like, I love teaching yoga. I love what I'm doing right now. I love being in yoga. I love meditation. I love running retreats. And I am so fortunate because some of the other work that I do in the world is with this nonprofit that Sean started over 20 years ago, that he and I have been doing together for over 16 years, called Riding on Insulin. So we do these, it's a nonprofit. I know a lot of you who've been following me for a while know this, but long story short, it's a nonprofit. We run ski and snowboard camps for kids and teens with type 1 diabetes. And we run them all over the country. Have run them all over the world. And this is just something we commit our time to. And for in the beginning, when I initially got into riding on insulin, and then I was getting into yoga, and I was opening yoga studios, I've always had my hands in lots of different things. And for a while, I was like, how do I live in these two alternate universes? Because running a nonprofit is a lot. It was a lot of management, a lot of fundraising, still is fundraising, operations, budgeting. I mean, it just feels so like very masculine in that way. And obviously camp day is like 8 days out of the year. Plus, we run a teen retreat for teens every summer at Archive, which is amazing. So the camp days, the actual fun days that I love, that's like a couple weeks a year total. All the other time is planning, 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 planning. I'm not planning Eras tours, but I will say that a lot of planning goes into this organization, and our team works really hard to make it happen. And we have so many volunteers, and it's just this huge production. And what I found over time is that my work teaching yoga or being in nature or running retreats at Archive or even just like living in the Brooks Range, the the two of those things, they're so important because one energizes me for the other. There are lots of masculine organizational, like structural stuff that I have to do for Archive too. And then when I get to take a break from that and go run a ski and snowboard camp, it's just like it's the best. The variety of it is the best. And so back to Taylor Swift, what I feel like what the vibes that I was getting is like this relationship and um this relationship that the two of them have. The reason it works is because there's this element of spontaneity juxtaposed with routine and structure. And what that brings to mind for me is this concept of sthira and sukha. Sthira means strength without rigidity, and sukha means flexibility without instability. So, what does that mean? It means in all that we do, we have to have a certain strength and a certain amount of flexibility. It's like personal trainers today that are like, oh, yeah, you got to lift weights, but then also do like yoga and whatever, yoga practice on the mat. Not yoga that I'm talking about that fills your whole life. Same, but slightly different. They're important because one complements the other. And Taylor and Travis, I feel like, have this complementary vibe that obviously they're both like really happy, like genuinely happy. And again, not an expert, but from what I listened to, I did not feel like they were putting on any sort of show. I feel like I was getting, a little bit of the weird Taylor. I was getting like inside jokes. It was really cool to see. And I thought it was a great reminder for all of us that like if she hadn't taken that chance and, when Travis Kelce put it out on the podcast, like that he wanted to meet Taylor Swift and he was hurt that he didn't like get to meet her, such a chance. But if she hadn't taken a chance on him and she said all these people were vouching for him, you should meet him, you should meet him. I can't imagine if you're Taylor Swift at like the height of what I imagine is the height, who knows, the height of her career, and you're being told that like you should date this guy. I don't know. I feel like that's a big risk. And she, has a long track record of like breakups and whatever. So she took that risk. And I thought that that was just so cool that it ended up changing everything for her. And we'll see what the lyrics of her songs are about, but it sounds like writing this and producing this during the Eras tour, during the time when she met Travis, it just, and like Travis kept saying, it's just like I got a lot of vibrant energy. And so all the colors, I love the colors, obviously orange, the color of the second chakra, the color of creativity. It's the color of Ganesha. Ganesha is the elephant-headed god who he's the gatekeeper. So when we're on the threshold of like a new time in our life, we work with Ganesha because he helps us overcome obstacles and he essentially helps kind of release that power within us. He's the gatekeeper, we say. And so when we're working in that orange energy of the center of creativity, we're working with him. And I was like, oh, girl, you picked the best color, which obviously she knows on either a direct level or a subconscious level, whatever. She's really smart. So that was really cool. And then I really thought of, I was thinking of other archetypes as I was listening, and I really thought about Mitra. Mitra is the Vedic god of friendship. This is the god, it's the ruling deity of, and I'm getting kind of yoga nerding out, but some of you will know this and get this. So in Jyotish or Vedic astrology, we have these 27 nakshatras. These are the stars. It's further divisions of the 12 sign zodiac. So if you were to like set those aside for a second, but then take the 360 degrees of the sky that they occupy, and instead of dividing it by 12, you divide it by 27. Those are the nakshatras. And these are very, very ancient. These were written about in the Vedas, which are arguably the oldest spiritual texts in the world. And so Anuradha is one of the nakshatras, and it's a special one because my moon is in Anuradha. So I feel like I totally vibed with this. I was like, oh my gosh, the Vedic god of friendship. It's Mitra he essentially is the god that brings people together. And not only did I feel that about Taylor and Travis sharing their story of how they got together, but they kept saying, and Jason said this too, is like, and everybody had been telling Taylor, like, you got to meet this guy. He's like the best. He's like the greatest guy. He's just, and she would always say, like, you have so many great friends. And she's like, green flag. He's friends with the same guys he's been friends with since he was 4. I was like, oh my gosh, me too. I have so many amazing friends in my life. And so I really vibed with that. There's really no point to me telling you this other than like I was vibing. And it was just really cool to like just think of, my moon and where my moon is in my chart and just how that shows up in my head. So I literally breathe this stuff. Okay. One more point, I promise. The last thing that I was just thinking about, and I'm truly fascinated by, I just love just these human interest stories and like watching how the world is so enamored by someone. And I am too. Like, of course I'm enamored by Taylor Swift and like how she does this and like how she puts words. I mean, the writer in me is like, man, that's like, I think poetry is incredible. And I do not consider myself a poet in that way, but definitely a writer. And so as a writer, just like mad respect, right? So I think what Taylor Swift, why she is so incredibly poignant right now is because she makes magic real. These Easter eggs that she leaves, it seems magical. Like, it's like those games when you were a kid, or like we used to get these magazines where like, where you had look at the two images and you have to like find the things that are different. My mind loved that. Where it was like, or finding Waldo, right? That was also, I remember I had the Waldo books, and like finding where Waldo was like, I wanted to like sleuth it out. She creates that for people. Like she said, we're world building. She literally is world building with people. So, all of you who are reading these fairy books with me, yeah, same thing. She brings that same magic into real life. And while I think that's amazing, and we're all always going to be looking outside of ourselves to some degree to different archetypes, whether it's Taylor Swift as an archetype, whether it's Saraswati, whether it's Mitra, whether it's whoever, right? Zeus, Aphrodite, whatever. We're all going to be looking out for these archetypes. And ultimately, it's what happens on the inside and how we embody that from within. And whoever your archetype is, whatever you're devoted to, whether, you could say this in a spiritual sense, because I think a lot of people are devoted to Taylor Swift in a very spiritual sense. And I'm not even laughing that off. I think that's legit, right? So whatever you're devoted to, that is gonna fill your life. So if you're devoting yourself to this magical serendipity, even for a moment with Taylor Swift, however long this moment lasts, you are going to embody that same magic. I know for me, I was driving, and like I was driving along the road and I saw a moose, a mama moose and a baby, which I was so excited about. And then I saw this beautiful hawk that like flew next to me for a while. And I thought of a number of things when I saw these animals, and that's what reminded me of this. I was like, that's what Taylor Swift has. She brings the magic. And so I hope that where I want to close this is that, what you fill your mind with expands. What you spend your energy on and what you give your energy to also expands. What you are devoted to, what spiritual path you are devoting yourself to, whether it's the path of Taylor Swift and being a Swiftie, or what you would call traditional religion, or what you would call spirituality, or a yogic path, which is where I can meet you because that's where I am. Whatever it is, that is what's going to fill your life. And when you're intentional about that and you're conscious of it, that's when you really start to make powerful change in your life. And for me, and all I can share about is where I'm at. For me, my meditation practice, I've recently been reminded of just how powerful meditation is in my life for a number of reasons. And if I could pinpoint the reason why I keep coming back to it, it's because when I meditate regularly, it's like I have a regular instant like phone line connection, almost like walkie-talkie connection with my higher self. And what do I mean by that? I mean like the part of me that's connected to God, connected to something bigger than myself. It's the part of me that has these incredible ideas like this, like what I'm doing right now. This is totally out of the ordinary. There's part of me that's like, why are you even recording this? Why is this even important? You know what? I don't care because I was just so passionate about it, and it felt like it just dropped in. And so here I am. And that magic of listening to the highest version of myself. If I'm meditating for 5 minutes a day, a lot of times it ends up being 20 minutes, 30 minutes if I'm, lucky and have the time to be. And so committing that time, it's just, I get that time back. And when I'm regularly meditating, I see more magic. It keeps me tethered to that. I see the signs, I hear those ideas, I have the motivation. It's just like a cascade effect. And so that also goes along. Oh my gosh, I know. This is called a Wisconsin goodbye, or a Midwest goodbye. We can call it a Wisconsin goodbye because that's where I'm from, but a Midwest goodbye. It's like my hand is on the door handle, but that doesn't mean I'm leaving yet. So one more thing. Drishti. This is the last yogic concept. I forgot I wrote this down. When we're in a yoga class, your teacher might tell you, especially if you're in a balancing pose, set your drishti, right? Set your drishti on something that's not moving. The idea is like if you're in tree pose or another balancing position, if you're looking at something that's not moving, then you too will be unmoving. And this concept is the summary of everything that I've talked about. It's literally what you're looking at. Like Taylor said, what you spend your energy on, that's your day. That's your day. So think, what are you looking at? And sometimes it's not like, oh, I'm looking at, this ho-hum job that I have. Woe is me. I need to quit. I need to overhaul my life and make my side hustle, my whatever. No, you might not need to do that. If you sit with yourself, if you commit to those practices that help you feel connected to your highest self, whether it's meditation, yoga, or something else, if you connect, your perspective changes. So while it might be the same job that you go to every day, the you that's going to that job every day is the thing that's changing. And that makes all the difference. So it's not even that you need to change your external circumstances all the time. It's literally that you need to change the lenses that you're viewing them with. You need to upgrade your own algorithm. And how do we do that? Well, I can tell you how I do that. Meditation, yoga, Kriya, all the things that I teach and that I love, that is how I do it. And there are plenty of things in my life that might seem, oh my God, Molly, you're living your dream. I am living my dream. I love my life. And there are still a lot of things that I have to do that I don't prefer to do. And that's okay. But the lens through which I view those things is so altered and beautiful and open because of the practices that I commit to. So anyway, Taylor Swift, just making a very strong case to commit to your spiritual practices, whatever they are. So I hope you've enjoyed this special episode. I would love to hear from you. Please write me a message, DM me on Instagram at Molly of the North or Yoga with Molly Busby. Comment here, tell me what you think, and let's have a conversation. So thank you for listening, and I hope you are having a fabulous day wherever you are.